Looking at the current events taking place in the world today, it appears that instability, which is sometimes accompanied by a transition from the status quo, seems to be the order of the day. From several coups which uprooted the grip of despots from their seats of power to the creeping depression of the global economy, one can see how things are changing in the world. One thing that seems to remain consistent, however, especially in the last few decades, is that Qatar still remains on the up, and it's hard to see how they can be derailed. Far removed from the impoverished fishing and trading British protectorate, Qatar is poised to be one of the richest countries in the world in the decades to come. Providence, mixed with strategic utilization of their resources, have seen them amass wealth that supersedes many states and empires that have been established for decades, with some even being in existence for millennia, and it seems like the world should prepare itself for a new world order in which Qatar would be compared to countries like the United Kingdom, or perhaps more recently, the United States, when it comes to the wealth of the nation. How exactly did this happen? How did this small West Asian nation in the middle of the desert manage to pull this off? What does it have in place to ensure that it will continue to prosper? Let's head over to Qatar to find out why it will always be the richest country in the world. I think we can all agree that the best starting point in this deep dive is to look at the prosperous country's location. For those who have made a trip to the Middle Eastern country, they would know that Qatar is located on the northeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula. This means that it enjoys wealthy neighbors as it shares its southern borders with Saudi Arabia thanks to its location in the Persian Gulf. That also means it has the United Arab Emirates as another neighbor in the southeast, and it's also within proximity of Bahrain, another wealthy nation that is only separated from Qatar thanks to the Gulf of Bahrain. As you can imagine, this means that it is perfectly located for trade with these countries, something that it enjoyed during its days spent trading in the fishing and pearl hunting industry during its days as a British protectorate in the early decades of the 20th century. Unfortunately, things become problematic for the Sheikhdom when the Japanese ventured into cultured pearls. With the consequent decline of the Qatari pearl industry, Qatar had to find another way to support its economy. Thankfully, the answer was just underneath the nation's desert. Things changed for the country when oil was discovered in Qatar all the way back in 1939. Although World War II delayed in-depth exploration, this monumental discovery is what turned the tides for this humble protectorate in the Persian Gulf. Like its neighbor in the south, oil was discovered in vast reserves underneath the desert sands. Thankfully, Qatar was able to harness this black gold into the fuel for prosperity because it was able to exploit oil to the point it can actually be considered to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. As of 2023, it has the fourth highest GDP per capita in the world. This is mostly thanks to the fact that it has been able to harness what's been determined to be the third largest natural gas reserves and oil reserves on the planet. With this sort of backing, it's been able to become one of the major players in the fossil fuel industry, as it's a prominent member of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, otherwise known as OPEC. With its control of over 10% of the world's oil reserves, the oil-rich nation has been making waves by maintaining its strategy of developing its natural gas reserves through projects with some of the biggest international oil and gas companies in the world. As we speak, Qatar controls 891 TCF of the natural gas reserves and produces 16.5 BCF over D, thereby making it third in the world behind only Russia and Iran. Furthermore, Qatar is a leading exporter of liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG. Although the world is constantly looking for ways to transition from its reliance on fossil fuels due to the documented adverse effects these hydrocarbon compounds have on the environment, Qatar is bound to be in the money for a very long time to come. Be that as it may, Qatar has decided against maintaining an economy that is over-reliant on the oil industry. Smart. Not only would the global transition from the primary product be in the back of their minds, there is actually wisdom in that old adage about not keeping all your eggs in one basket. As such, while it continues trading in the oil industry, Qatar is also doing its best to diversify its economy. One of the sectors which have benefited from the country's eagerness to diversify its economy is its financial sector. Today, it has taken steps to establish itself as a financial hub within the Persian Gulf, perhaps modeling itself like a Switzerland with one hell of an oil backing. Qatar has taken steps to develop its banking and insurance sectors while making its borders hospitable to some of the best investment firms in the world. This is mostly thanks to the Qatar Financial Center, which has been critical in attracting some of the most powerful international financial institutions to Doha. Aside from its financial sector, Qatar is also well known for its tourism. As we've seen in the last few years, Qatar has invested heavily in becoming one of the most attractive places to visit on the planet. Today, thanks to its attractions and some of its eye-catching events, it has become the premier destination in the world. In the last 5 years alone, Qatar has hosted the IAAF World Athletics Championships and the Qatar Grand Prix. And of course, just last year, it played host to the 2022 FIFA World Cup, perhaps the biggest sporting event in the world. You can see how hosting the World Cup alone would have boosted its visibility, while also boosting the amount of people that would be eager to visit the country. Eager to host these curious tourists is the hospitality sector, which is well prepared with some of the most luxurious hotels and resorts in the world. The investment in the infrastructure isn't only limited to these guest homes, as visitors will find that the country also makes sure it developed its real estate and civil infrastructure as well. Just compare its skyline from the 40s to its skyline today. The difference is breathtaking and is definitely a case study on perhaps how to develop the infrastructure of a country. Just take a look at anything from the amazing skyscrapers that make up its skyline to the Doha Metro. Aside from working on boosting tourism and hospitality while ensuring that it's able to maintain its financial industry, Qatar also has approached developing the technology in the country as well. It has been proactive in developing innovation and tech within its borders by establishing innovation hubs and technology parks, such as Qatar Science and Technology Park. There, they can carry out research and development in important fields such as IT, biotechnology, and renewable energy, which in turn has attracted some of the keenest and sharpest minds on the planet to establish their startups and tech companies over in Qatar. Qatar also decided to diversify its economy by taking advantage of its location. Thanks to its location, which gives it prime proximity to major markets in Asia and Europe, Qatar is actually perfectly positioned for international trade. Spotting this advantageous position, Qatar decided to invest heavily in developing its seaports and airports to a world-class level, while making sure its road networks are up to par with the best in the world, so that it can establish one of the best transport networks anywhere. Aside from being blessed with the natural resources to build a nation, Qatar must be grateful for its political stability. After all, it isn't every oil-rich nation that's able to achieve such prosperity in such a short period of time. Despite not having religious beliefs that may suit some in other parts of the world, Qatar has been able to maintain cordial international relations with most of the world, and as such, they have reaped the rewards by being able to attract foreign investments, which in turn has contributed to its economic growth. Perhaps it's due to the fact that the country has been able to maintain some political stability, especially in light of the political instability that has been taking place worldwide in the last few decades. Thanks to the hereditary monarchy that has been at the seat of power for almost 2 centuries since the 1800s, the government has managed to maintain a semblance of stability that has made them attractive to the international world. In fact, Qatar has also been impactful when it comes to mediating for its neighbours in regional conflicts, while also lending some support in international peace efforts by lending its hand to countries in need. Perhaps the most important reason that Qatar is poised for centuries of prosperity is the fact that it's also making considerable investments in its education and human capital development, as any country in such a position should, to be honest, because this will undoubtedly develop a skilled workforce in the years to come. Furthermore, such initiatives as the Qatar Foundation for Education, Science and Community Development has served to attract some of the keenest minds from every point in the world. Be that as it may, the Foundation's main goal remains the promotion of education and research in Qatar, and it's doing so by establishing some of the best universities and research centres in the world in Qatar. Aside from this, several programs are in place to help train and develop the local Qataris with some of the modern skills needed to thrive in the modern world. This, in turn, would help them develop the competency of their locals so that they won't rely on foreign labour. In conclusion, although the country is oil-rich, the diversification of its economy will ensure that the nation takes full advantage of the proceeds of its fossil fuel reserves. Couple this with a politically stable environment and an investment in its people, Qatar is set for many years of prosperity. With any luck, this enrichment will manifest to the point where Qatar will be rich for centuries to come. This brings our video to an end. Do you think they'll be able to end their reliance on fossil fuel? Please let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Until next time, goodbye.